Bootcamp. We are talking with our American Express Bootcamp 2014 participants from US, Canada, and Mexico. And they're here today to talk to us about growing and sustaining your organization. So we're going to get some great insights, hear from their experiences, and perhaps get some great nuggets of advice for all of you emerging innovators out there. So just to kick things off, let's start with introductions. Andres?
Sure. Thank you for inviting me to be here. My name is Andres Marquez-Lara. I'm founder and president of Promethean Community, and we are a global management consulting company that facilitates cross-sector dialogue, incorporating local artists so they can address local social change. We believe that there's so many talented artists all over the world, and what we're trying to do is basically help connect them to local governments, nonprofits, and for-profits to create these cross-sector dialogues so they can think together and collaborate to address change in their hometowns. And we are based out of the Metro DC area.
Great, thanks so much. And Fadi?
Hi, yes, thanks for having me here today. It's really exciting. My name is Fadi Qassar, and I'm the managing director of Uganda Venture. Uganda Venture is an international development project based in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. And our mission is working in communities in Uganda, of course, rural communities in Uganda. And our mission is to transform individuals, families, and communities out of poverty and into lasting well-being. And we do this through two types of intervention. So we have the charity model, where we come alongside communities and we help them building schools and orphanages and homes for AIDS survivors. And our second method of intervention is providing micro loans or microcredit solutions to entrepreneurs on the ground in Uganda and help them bring themselves out of poverty. So that's kind of us in a nutshell.
Great. And Sarah?
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Drew, and my company is Everyone Games. We teach game development to a neurodiverse community of autistic youth to help them develop social, technical, and professional skills. We currently offer our programs in Niagara Region and in Toronto. I'm also leading a research project that identifies issues in accessibility into post-secondary school, focusing on emerging game development programs in Ontario. But most of the time I'm educating people, businesses, and just the general public about neurodiversity, because I love the way that we're all born with different brains in the same way that we're born with different bodies, genders, and races.
Fantastic. All right, and Smita?
All right, hi everyone. It's good to see everyone's faces again. My name is Smita. I'm with Ashoka Changemakers. I'm sitting here in our global office in DC, where like crazy pouring rain right now. Whoever else is but it's great to see you guys on camera, and we spent the last 3 months running boot camps with all the participants that you all see here in Mexico City, in Toronto, and in Europe. And Ashoka and American Express partnered on this initiative almost 3 years ago, where we had started with one boot camp in New York City, where we brought in our top change makers for entrance or folks that had entered previous competition in Ashoka previously, and now expanded these boot camps to 45 emerging innovators all around the world. So it's just great to see you all here, and looking forward to today's talk.
Fantastic. And Sofía?
Well, hello. Thank you very much for this invitation. My name is Sofía Sánchez, and I am the co-founder of Deporte. It's a company created with the goal of ending sedentarism in Mexico. So why did we choose to focus on this task? Because sedentarism is directly related to Mexico's most important public health issue, which is obesity. So we created a program called Reto, Actívate ya, which means Get Active Now Challenge. And we implemented in organizations, companies, and school, which is where the problem is more severe. And to overcome the psychological barrier a sedentarism person has when it comes to moving and being active, we decided to create a motivational program based on human basic motivators using modern coaching, and we came up with an 8-week program. So the users take part of a virtual competition on a website and an app, and our program gives them daily training based on their initial level of physical activity, and all their movement is recorded and measured with a measuring device. So we make sure they have a fun experience, and that way they begin to get active.
Fantastic.
We're based in Mexico.
Yes, and you're based in Mexico. And looking at your photo, we can clearly see you are not very sedentary. Jumping up and down. All right, and last but not least, Trina.
Hi, I'm Trina, and I'm currently on a fellowship called Atlas Corps. And with that fellowship, I'm serving at American Express Philanthropy, which is one of the partners for Ashoka in conducting the Emerging Innovators Bootcamp that some of you might have participated in. And I'm focusing on building the alumni network for all the nonprofit leaders that American Express works with.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, everyone. And for those of you out there, we have one more participant who will be joining us a little bit late. So if you see a new face pop in, it will be Tamara, and we'll have her introduce herself when she joins. But we'll go ahead and just get started. So question 1. Starting an organization is already a very difficult endeavor, as I think many emerging innovators know. Many people try and fail. What was the plan or vision that you all had when you were starting your work to make it a sustainable organization? Were you able to stick to that plan? And if not, you know, what did you learn from that, or how were you able to adapt? And whoever would like to start, you can go ahead. We'll give you guys a few seconds to think about it.
I can take a start. It's okay. So I studied mental health for undergrad and graduate, and came across the field of psychodrama and saw the power of theater to bring people together. And I was acting in an improv group in the DC metro area when I saw just the power of this type of theater to really build community. And I was just blown away, and I wanted to do more of that. And basically I figured, you know, this is not the only group. There must be tons of artists all over the world that can use their arts to help build community. And I wanted to basically be the person to help connect these artists with the communities that needed strengthening. I went out and interviewed about 30 people, from CEOs and executive directors to friends, family, colleagues, and just kind of share with them the idea of what I was trying to do. And I remember the best advice I got was from a friend, a CEO of a consulting company called Performance of a Lifetime in New York City, and Kathy Salett. And she told me, you know, Andres, just go and do something and see what emerges. And that's basically what I did. I started just kind of little by little. Well, I had a full-time job, weekends, evenings, just kind of trying to pilot things, talking to people. And the funny thing is that basically I ended up shifting and becoming kind of a consultant, where I was then the one providing the training using theater. And I just came back from Colombia 2 weeks ago, and I'm going back to the original mission. So it's funny how things keep changing and shifting, because now I have language that I didn't have before, and I have kind of a different vision for it. So it's always kind of up and different, moving and saying yes and to the opportunities.
Wonderful. So it sounds like you being flexible to what opportunities come around, but also you really sought out prior experience and not trying necessarily to reinvent the wheel, but seeing how you can adapt and build it and change it to make it something your own. That's fantastic. Yes. Sarah?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's really similar to, you know, the things that I've experienced when I started Everyone Games. It was a one-evening workshop to teach video game development to a really small group of teens. And when I decided to start making it something bigger, my biggest challenge was in developing a system where it worked for the development of activities. I was a camp counselor for a really long time. I've been working with autism for 10 years. And every time as a camp counselor, you made a schedule of activities or games. And at the end of the week, you know, you spent a lot of time doing that, and then it was, you know, thrown out at the end of the week. So one of the ideas that I had to kind of create a more sustainable sustainable program is to give my staff a way to write these programs, create these games, create something that they want to teach people, and then put it on a forum where other Everyone Games staff members can look at those activities and implement that into their own programs. So really taking what I had done as a camp counselor all of my life and making that more sustainable, thinking about how I can change what I do every day and helping other people do that, because that's unpaid work and it's a lot of effort. So having that thrown out at the end of the week was something, you know, really painful to do.
It's always hard, I think, yeah, to figure out when to let things go or to push through it and find another way, but that's great. Thank you so much for sharing. And Fadi or Trina or Sofía?
Yeah, I was just going to echo what Andreas and Sarah said in terms of kind of the vision and the kickoff of the organization evolving from a small program or like a part-time thing that we all did on the side because we were passionate about what we're doing. So for us, when we started Uganda Venture, it was one trip to Uganda at a particular time of the year to engage people in Canada and in North America and in Uganda, in the villages, kind of get them working on something in collaboration, open up room and dialogue for ideas and idea exchange and capacity building. But as that vision started to evolve, we started to dig deeper and look at what programs can we facilitate that would actually create sustainability in the communities, and that's what essentially led us to shift some of our programming and introduce microcredit, as well as some more education from the finance perspective on the ground, which we think is really important. So I think when people start with a perceived need, or maybe with a way that they think that they can contribute to a particular need or a particular industry, and then as you dig deeper and as you start to learn about what's going on in the communities that you're working with and what's going on with your volunteers, your organization and your vision and your plan shift and evolve accordingly, I think.
The one quick thing I wanted to share was, sorry, Smita, were you going to say something?
Go for it, Trina.
Okay. No, just so before I came here and I was on this fellowship, I started and ran my nonprofit in India, where we work with women trafficked into the sex trade, and I did that for 4 years. And I think my biggest learning from that is that it's never too early to start building systems. So, you know, when you just have 2 employees in the organization, you think you don't need HR practices, you don't think you need rules about, you know, how much leave or how many working hours someone can have, or you know, like our accounts for the first 2 or 3 years was just, you know, putting all our receipts into this big box we had in our living room, and then, you know, struggling to audit our accounts at the end of every year. Because when you're a startup, you're concentrating on so many more things. There's either no time to establish these systems, or you think, you know, we're still too small, we don't need them. But if you want to scale and be sustainable, I think the earlier you have these systems in place, the better, because you don't realize the day when you go from 2 employees to 15 employees, and you can't scale like that unless you have those systems in place. So yeah, just have them as early as possible is my learning.
Trina, I feel like we've heard that, and it just makes so much sense to have these kind of systems sort of set up already, and it kind of actually brings us naturally to our next question or topic that we wanted to ask everybody about. As we're trying to set up these systems, and as you're trying to kind of make your organization as best set up to grow and be successful, how have you all figured out who are the best people to surround yourself with, and how to even hire folks, and how to choose your, you know, either whether it's your board of advisors or your board of directors or volunteers that you choose, or even people that you're hiring on your team to work, either part-time or full-time. How have you kind of figured that out, and what has been your process? And what are the kind of biggest qualities that you want to hire on or keep people around you on? We'd love to hear from anybody on that.
Well, hi. Well, I want to share that the two main challenges I have found in the process of building an organizational culture have been two. First one is define the organization DNA, because we, the entrepreneurs, we act instinctively, in a certain way. But when you want to help the organization grow, you need to figure out a way to translate your motivation and practices to the whole organization in a current way. So that has been a really, not problem, but we have to figure out a way to transmit all this passion about what we're doing to the whole organization. And the other one is exactly in the same way, has been to find the right people to add to our team. We decided that for us, having a personal commitment to physical activity is very important. So all of the people who work in Deporte C are passionate about sports, and we want this way to make sure they can inspire other people of the importance of the physical activity.
Yeah, I believe that having a passion for the work that we do is essential when we're looking for volunteers or people to join the team as employees. Yeah, I think that's what differentiates people in our space, because we're a cause-based organization. So we don't want people that are just in it to kind of collect the paycheck. We want people that will work the extra hours and that will pour their hearts into it, because it's something that they're passionate about, and it's something that they want to see come into the world, whether it's through Uganda Venture or through other organizations. So if they're passionate about social justice or development or kind of engaging communities in international vision, or feel like they're international citizens of the world, I think that's an asset and a great kind of addition to us to the team, to have that. And it just brings a different perspective, and it engages people in a totally new way when that passion is added into the mix. So I think that's what we've kind of figured out in terms of hiring practices, or engagement practices anyway.
For us, I think a lot of it has to do with so like who are like the mentors and the board of advisors that we kind of organized. And the way we did that was just, going out and telling people that I needed help around these things, and just saying, hey, I have this idea, but I need help around this particular area. What are you thinking? Who do you know? And just through conversations and networking, get to meet people that were supportive of me, of my vision of Promethean community, and that are people that to this day I still meet with and talk to them, every couple of weeks to just check in. And when I need help with a new client, a new partnership, I'm reaching out to these board of advisors to really kind of help me think through. But I think it starts with you knowing what are the things you need help with as you move forward to grow this.
Yeah, I really like that. I was really fortunate. I'm a member of the digital media zone at Ryerson University, and I really like to surround myself with people who understand the ins and outs of business. I'm a little bit different. We are a for-profit social enterprise. So I do hire people who are, incredibly passionate, whether that be about video game development and creative development, or about helping people. But I think for hiring a team, what it comes down to for me is pairing the right people together. I hire facilitators who are either game development professionals or graduates of game development programs, and then pair them with teachers in training who want experience in a neurodiverse classroom. And I think when you hire students and when you hire people who are most interested in developing their own skills, those are the people who are not only going to be passionate about what they're doing, but are going to take that extra time to put extra work into it so that they can develop the skills that they need to continue to have the career that they want as well. And then myself as a boss, I think it's important for me to kind of facilitate that pairing. So when I'm hiring people, I look at, who do I already have on my team? What is their personality like? What are their skills? And who are they going to work really well with? And try to develop that that culture.
Awesome. I love that idea of pairing people. You're sort of bringing two different sets of strengths and having them work together and build off of each other, and that's really, really, really interesting. I can imagine that only makes the experiences even richer, having that two different kind of sets of knowledge come together. All right. Did anyone else have anything else to add for this question? No? Awesome. Well, let's go on then to talk about volunteers. Many new organizations rely a lot on volunteers to help fill the gaps until, they're grown large enough to be able to hire more people. And some organizations, they really function off of using volunteers as sort of their staff or, assistants. So where do volunteers fit for you guys? How much do you rely on them, and, how do they fit into your plan to grow as an organization with your work?
So I have to say I love volunteering and I love volunteers. I love volunteering because I volunteered for 4 years before I started my own career. So when I'm looking for volunteers, I always want to give them that opportunity that I had. I think it's so important. So right now, the volunteers that I have are actually a autistic self-advocate in our classroom. I think it's important for me to be able to show people that autistic people are great employees, and having a student who's really young and able to connect with our clients on a level where maybe one of our older female teachers can't relate, having that volunteer in the classroom as a self-advocate is incredibly important to the classroom experience, but also to the growth of the organization, because I want to give people as many opportunities as I possibly can, and we might not be at a stage where we can pay everybody, even though that is the ultimate goal. We also actually volunteer as a team, as a group. So the Everyone Games Toronto team right now will be at George Brown College this weekend to volunteer for Land Nation. It's Toronto's esports gaming festival for video game tournament. And we're going as an entire group to volunteer so that everybody can gain volunteer experience, whether that be for their high school hours or just to have extra skills development experience while out and about in the city. So volunteering is always something that I want to have in place. But a well-organized, well-structured volunteer program, not just extra hands around, but with actual purpose as to what you want your volunteers to do and how they can get the most out of their experience as a volunteer.
That's awesome. I really love that philosophy. In order to get the experience, you need to give the experience as well. And I think that's true. A lot of people forget that volunteer programs need to be organized too, just as much as a paid position needs to have a clear function and sort of place in the work.
Sarah,
and that's actually brought up a great point of you guys doing volunteering too. It's definitely a two-way street.
I just had a quick question. Sarah, do you have any concrete tips or ways that you can maybe share with the rest of the group that you've sort of helped develop a very well-organized volunteer program, whether it's a work plan structure or, how have you been able to do this? Because I think it's something that a lot of people struggle with, and maybe something that you could probably share some of your tips.
So what I've learned is to have really clear roles and responsibilities, because often you'll have volunteers at different skill sets. You'll have somebody learning something for the first time, or you'll have somebody really, really experienced. So having a really clear role, as opposed to with a staff member who you're paying, they tend to wear a little bit more of a multiple hats sort of thing, and you can ask a little bit more of them. But for volunteers, you want to have a really structured, here's what you need to do, but also having it so that you're including your volunteers in all of the discussions. You're including them as staff members. You're giving them that opportunity to learn so that they can be a staff member in the future. and then giving them that opportunity to really be a part of the team. But having really laid out responsibilities is a way for them to understand that here's my role as a volunteer, so that you're not stepping on anybody else's toes, so that the staff members really are maintaining control of the situations. And I think our organization is a little bit different in that way, because we do have, a certain set of responsibilities for the social workers and a certain set of responsibilities for a game development facilitator, where one group may be more appropriate to handle a situation. But as far as the volunteers go, just being clear with what you need and figure it out beforehand. You most likely have a really well-structured idea of what you want your staff to do, and take out what can be done, what can the volunteers do to really help that happen, what is needed, not just wanted, and have the volunteers do that. Because when your volunteers are doing something that you need, there's just an overwhelming accomplishing feeling about being part of the team. They're not just extras, but they really are an integral piece of what's happening. So you get the most out of your volunteers, and you're organized, and your staff is more organized.
Great. Thanks so much for the advice. Fadi, would you like to add?
Yeah, for us, I just wanted to say that we've also moved to kind of a skill-based volunteer position. So we have some really great marketing people, whether it be students or actually marketing professionals helping us with our marketing efforts and our communications planning. We have great people who are really knowledgeable in social media, managing that piece for us. We have people who are passionate about planning events and getting people together, working on our event sector. We have finance and accounting students helping us with our microcredit program. And so it's a very diverse group of volunteers, which adds to kind of the flavor of Uganda Venture, and it adds to the culture of the organization. But at the same time, we're getting the things that we need that we might not be able to afford by just matching really skilled people from the community with positions or openings that we have here, and we just kind of go through like a really basic HR kind of recruitment procedure. So we post like a volunteer position. We explain thoroughly what the position would involve and how many hours a week or a month it would require of the volunteer, and what's the expectation, and all that stuff around it. So there's a ton of clarity when people are kind of looking to join the team, and clarity from us on our expectation and the time commitment that we would require, and hopefully that would just kind of mitigate any of the risks of kind of having people join the team when they don't really have the time to kind of be a part of your cause and stuff. And I really liked what Sarah said in terms of volunteering with the volunteers. So that was a really cool idea. And for us, we kind of do that in a sense. Our volunteers get first dibs on joining our volunteer trips to Uganda. So people that volunteer with us here in the community who are passionate about what we're doing, if they wanted to come to Uganda, they would have first dibs because we know them, and because they've been working with us for so long. So it actually kind of makes sense for us to bring them to Uganda and make them more passionate about what we're doing. So that was really cool.
I just quickly wanted to add that I'm a big believer in this concept of entrepreneurial volunteering, and what that really means is that you familiarize your volunteers with the general organizational mission and goals, but then you let volunteers come up with and design their own projects. So for example, back in my organization, I was saying, we want to build leadership in these girls. We are working with girls who've attracted sexually, and we just want to give them a lot of exposure to different social issues. And then our volunteers were free to design programs around, I want to do a theater workshop with them, or like we want to take them to this activist or protest rally that's going on in the city, or whatever it is. And I feel like when you give volunteers that kind of freedom and space to design something of their own, they take a lot more ownership over it, and they perform better. They're much more engaged. So it's something to look at and consider.
Yeah, there's a great quote from an organization I used to volunteer for, and we used to always say people support what they themselves create. So the more you can bring people in and give them a role and give them some empowerment in the process, the more invested they'll be, and the more it'll come out in the work that they do for you. So.
And they will also become your apostles, to use a faith-based word, but they will basically kind of share the message you're doing, your mission, and they'll be passionate about it, and then they'll kind of advertise for you essentially with whoever they meet, and they'll be also, going back to your second question, a great opportunity to meet people that you can, like, they may introduce you to somebody who could end up being a potential staff person because they share that. So it's a way also to kind of promote the message of your brand, of what you're creating.
Very, very true. Okay. And Sofía, did you have anything to add? How do volunteers play out in your work?
No, actually, we haven't worked with volunteers yet. I think we haven't figured out in our culture how to integrate the volunteers as a commitment with the project. We're still building in that because we believe in everything you have just said about being your principal evangelist with your project, but we haven't figured out a way to integrate them. But these are great tips for doing that.
Fantastic. So you guys are learning from each other during this talk.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next question then. So you guys have already touched a lot about this when we're talking about hiring or volunteers, and it's about culture. So could each of you guys share a little bit, I guess, how would you describe the culture of your organization? And then let us, or explain to us, I guess, how do you work on building that? Or what did you do? What were some tips you had on building culture, the culture that you want in your organization?
Well, we try to be congruent with our mission. So we try to give them a good time working with us. We try to empower our employees and to make them motivated with the same tools we use in our programs. So basically their goals are based only not in achieving our main KPIs, but in building the organization and becoming valuable team players. We do some gaming and we use some gamification techniques as well in-house, and it has worked pretty well.
Great. So sort of getting everyone to be really excited, sort of entertained a little bit in a way, and doing the work, and just having a lot of fun, enjoying being there.
Mm-hmm.
I think for us, it's definitely something that we're still working on because we work regionally. So we have a team in Toronto, we have a team in Niagara. I'm going to be developing a team in Hamilton shortly. So every team kind of has its own culture based on, local needs. The programs will work to satisfy the needs of each region. So the people who are working in those regions are also different, and each culture sort of becomes different. So for me, the overall culture, I think, is much more about that learning opportunity, that you never stop learning. No matter how good you are at it, there's always room to improve, and as long as you are excited about that learning, you're going to remain motivated. I also think that it comes from seeing the success of our clients. You're working one-on-one with people and with students, and when you see your student learning something and trying something new or taking something new home with them, that's an incredibly accomplishing feeling. That is, that's what our culture is all about. It's that authentic experience, that amazing feeling that comes over you when you learn something new. So I want all of my employees to feel that, not just my, not just the students.
Sarah, one thing that I think is interesting that you brought up is this concept of sort of remote teams or virtual sort of people that are working across various regions or localities. And I think that that's probably even more challenging to develop a culture across the board with and you have people that are working in so many different things. So would love to hear maybe how you've done that, or even just some ways that you think that, you know, you tried and maybe have not worked as well. And I'm not sure, I know that you have some people, folks that you work with in the field as well. So would love to hear your guys' even just that virtual volunteering aspect and how to create culture beyond where you're typically based.
Yeah,
Sorry,
for sure.
Fadi.
So this year, for example, I noticed that on the ground, our employee that runs the microcredit bank does not get to feel the same kind of culture and experience as the people that we work with here, and which I think inconsistency in culture and kind of employee experience might be not the best thing. So what I'm planning to do right now, I'm kind of putting together a plan to engage Rebecca, our employee on the ground, in a more intentional way and a more meaningful way to kind of bring her on board with the culture that we've created here. I plan to go back to Uganda in November for 4 weeks and do some kind of training on the ground with her, do some off-sites where we dig into some of the work that we're doing, the meaning behind it, why we do what we do, what gets us excited, and just kind of try to bridge the gap that way. And from this point on, I think I'm just going to have to be more conscious of the fact that not everyone experiences us in the same way, and just continuously, maybe on an annual basis, assess how people between Uganda and here experience us, and just kind of troubleshoot and adapt based on what we think is going on. So it's going to take some conversations with people on the ground, and it's going to take some thinking on our end, but I think as long as it's top of mind and as long as we're thinking about it and not afraid to engage it, then you know, it's a learning curve, as Sarah has mentioned, and it's something that we would just have to go through, you know, intentionally.
I think also it's important to create the space to do it. I mean, I think, you know, you have to find a way to balance, you know, your deliverables and your project management and all you're doing, but to create this space, talk about how are we doing as a team. You know, how are we feeling with each other, dealing with the emotions, you know, because we're spending a lot of time with each other, and it's important to really check in with each other about, you know, and how to create the conditions to have those conversations. I mean, I think that's really important.
Trina, do you have anything you'd like to ask?
No, let's move on to the next question.
Andres, I was curious, with your team, do you do like weekly check-ins? Do you do sort of like monthly things? Do you do daily check-ins? Do you have like an all-hands sort of like meeting every week? I mean, how have you all, and open the question to everyone else, how have you structured even your touch points with the rest of your team, so that way you know that, you know, regularly how people are feeling, and you know, how do you even create that space? Like, what are some practical tips to do that?
So it's interesting because I quit my full-time job last November and my part-time job in May. So I've only been on my own since May, and in the process, like, you know, I have experience building the culture at my other employment places where I would kind of just set up a weekly meeting to kind of just check in with how we were doing. As I'm transitioning to, and then when in May, I was essentially a consultant with my company. But now that I'm shifting the vision to make it more, so I can scale it up and just be more organized, I actually have a team that's in Colombia working with me right now, and I have a group of mentors that I mentioned, that and different supervisory groups, if you will. And so basically I'd say in a given month, I'm talking to, I mean, anywhere like once a week or once every 2 weeks with these different people that are supporting the growth of Promethean community. And I think it's, yeah, just scheduling, saying, hey, you know, we're going to talk for 90 minutes about how are we doing, and how does it impact what we're trying to do, and just checking in with each other.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, let's go on to our fifth question. So all of you are participants from the American Express Bootcamp this year, where you got to participate in a lot of great workshops and talks about being an emerging innovator and how to just grow and continue with your work. So we were wondering, what is a piece of advice from the bootcamp, or maybe just your own experience, that you would share with a fellow emerging innovator?
So for me, one of the big take-home messages was just the power of vulnerability. I really think oftentimes people are trying to put in a performance of, I know what I'm doing, I got this down, and I think just that really opening up, saying, hey, I don't know, I need help. This is difficult for me. And doing it with people, like creating the space to do that. I think that was one of the takeaways from the bootcamp in New York that I've carried with me. I think is very important.
For me, just the same as Andres, the importance of getting involved with the entrepreneur environment and to share your experience with others that are trying to do the same things you do and are having the same difficulties. So I think that was a great experience. And also, the best way to learn is making mistakes. So make mistakes fast and cheap mistakes. That was a great learning for me.
I think I definitely learned a lot of soft skills and hard skills. I learned a lot about branding, and I've been to a lot of different workshops before, and at the boot camp was when I really understood how I was thinking about the service that we're selling as a product, but more so, what's the brand? What experience are you really selling? What do you mean? And I think it really ties into the culture that we described earlier. But it really was amazing. I came home with a lot of new ideas on how to communicate what we're doing, especially because you as an entrepreneur have, everything about your own company, and everything about the vision of your own company. But talking in, whether it be an elevator pitch or a half-an-hour presentation, you're never going to be able to get out all the details of your plan and all the details of what you really stand for. So for me, I left boot camp with a lot of excitement to go back and kind of rewrite how I'm communicating what we're doing. Not to mention the awesome friends like Fadi.
Yeah, I think just to kind of build on that and our Toronto experience, I felt like one of the lessons was be authentic, because everyone that I met was really authentic. They had their own story, they had their own passions, and they had their own reasons for why they wanted to do what they're doing. And I think it just kind of inspired me to strive to be more authentic and to tell my story from my perspective, and to try to find the people that are inspired by that authenticity and by what we're trying to do, and recruit them on board based on that. So yeah, passion, authenticity, I think go a long way, and you don't have to copy anybody else. Just focus on what you're doing and why you like what you're doing, and I think people gravitate to that.
And to kind of build on the idea of like the Fadi and Sarah, kind of the friendship that lasts after the bootcamp, I think that's something very powerful. Actually, tomorrow we're having a happy hour in DC metro area for alums from the academies. The pianos at 6 o'clock, if anybody's in the area and wants to join us. But essentially, we're staying in touch with the people that were part of the bootcamp, or expanding it to other alums to just kind of begin to network and really kind of connect and find new ways to support each other. And I think that's something that's just as important as the actual bootcamp itself, is to follow through to kind of build a community of support as we go through this journey, which, as we know, can be quite intense and difficult at times.
Thank you. Trina, did you have anything? that, I don't know, that stuck out to you from the boot camps that you wanted to share?
Just that I'm excited for the happy hour tomorrow.
All right. So our sixth question comes off of something Sofía mentioned before, but what has been a failure or something that you didn't expect to happen that you're willing to share? And what did you learn from it? What did you gain from that experience?
So I'll say that we fail a lot. Fail a lot. There's a lot that we try that doesn't work. It's hard to think of an example when it does happen every day. But I think more importantly for us, it's, okay, here's what we tried. Here's why we think it didn't work. And here's what we're going to try tomorrow. So even if you fail and you're failing and you're failing, as long as you're having that conversation of, you know, why you think it happened, and that's different than blame as to why it didn't work, but why it didn't work, and then come up with a new plan is what we focus on. So whether it be from, you know, a staffing perspective, in, you know, maybe staff members didn't get along and there was that sort of something happening there. Maybe it was we wanted a program to run, you know, a whole week, and that was just way too much for our clients to do every single day for 7 hours a day to come in and work with us. So there's a number of different things that we're consistently trying. And again, just I expect to fail, and I expect that I and my team will be able to come up with a solution and try it again without letting that failure kind of determine or make us stop trying. You know, we don't want it to get us down. We want it to say, okay, we tried. That means we're one step closer to having the right system.
That's great. That's jumps off of a lot of what you guys were saying earlier about culture too, of just being open to changing, to learning, to adapting, you know, as the situation calls for.
In terms of failure for me, or maybe it's an oversight, I like to focus on doing, so I'm very much of a impulsive, enthusiastic, go kind of person, and I was in the private sector for profit before I started working on Uganda Venture, and one of the things that I liked about the private sector was the notion of what can I do for you, what can you do for me, and kind of just be a service-based transaction. But where with Uganda Venture and with the non-for-profit experience, it's a lot more involved. On a relationship front, I have to invest a lot of time building and nurturing these relationships, and yeah, it's a big learning, and I think I underestimated the value of personal relationships and the power of kind of having really strong relationships with partners and the people that you work with to kind of advance your mission and do a better job at what you're doing. So I think that was a mistake that I made early on, and I'm still working on just being really great at kind of developing relationships and yeah, just continuing to foster relationships that we build. So.
I mean, one thing I was going to just suggest, like, I know I was raised in a family that was very kind of, you know, like failure in some ways was always like I feared failure big time. A lot of my work, personal and professional, has been to accept failure and embrace it. And one thing that helped me when I was designing the workshops and I'm doing them is to kind of, and I was so afraid that I was going to get it wrong, was to just see them as a prototype. You know, I think we've all been talking about it in many ways. Just kind of go and try it out, and it'll never be as you imagine it perfect. That's okay though. You try it, you learn from it, and you build on it. And always think that we tend to be much more critical than the people sometimes participating. At least in the workshops that I do, like I'm always very critical. Like, oh, we didn't do this particular way, but people still got what they needed. You know, they still got an experience that was supportive of that community, of that group. So I think also being soft on ourselves helps as we're trying to learn and build prototypes to improve.
Great. Thank you so much. So now we've just got about 6 more minutes left. So we've actually have a few questions from a couple people that are watching us out there on the event page. And so the first one comes from Jim Salmons, and he was part of a chat yesterday and where they were talking about growing and micro-entrepreneurism and how it almost seemed like a dirty word in the conversation. People saw it as being maybe micro, meaning limited in the vision or the markets or the impact. And so his question was, do any of you guys have specific experience funding and sustaining a decentralized and distributed program or service? If so, lessons learned, what are you doing, etc. And so this kind of comes about, he said, the problem is that too many foundations and other funding organizations consciously and unconsciously discriminate against non-scaling work. They don't support the natural required form of elastic networking required by small is good world solutions. So I know some of you, I mean, you guys, a lot of you guys are developing your work, so I'm not sure how much this will apply, but if you guys had any thoughts on that, otherwise we can move to the next question.
I do think, so I don't know if I'll answer it exactly, but there are a few things that I've experienced when I started, started Everyone Games, because we did start with a very, very small community in Niagara. And we're still a pretty small community. But when I was talking to people in business, so the first week I was at the Digital Media Zone, I had a meeting with the VP of Apple Canada, which blew me away. It was something that, I never thought in a million years I'd have that experience, and here we are doing that type of thing all the time. And they would ask me about my scalability. Scalability, what's your reach? And these were questions that at the time were difficult to answer, because to me it was, this can be as huge as I wanted or as small as I wanted. It just depends on what work we're doing and how long you're going to work and what you're going to, which projects you're going to push forward. So it really depended on a lot of different things. I think the question of scalability for me, I have a very micro-franchisee kind of model where I'm trying to develop those systems to create local impact. In game development, we have game development hubs and sort of digital media hubs that happen in each city. Almost like the downtown of each city will have a few studios that start emerging. And you have your AAA studios and your independent studios that emerge in different areas. So London, Ontario, Toronto, Ontario, Niagara, Montreal, Vancouver. These are places that have game development hubs, and where I decided to focus the beginning of Everyone Games, because those have the industry to support us. So even though our social reach and our social impact is really local, what we're looking to do is to have that local impact happen in a lot of different regions everywhere, and to really pilot that for Ontario before taking it national, before looking at how our program works in other provinces or in the States, and really getting out the bugs. So when people ask me right now about scalability, it's still a very difficult question to answer because we're still working that out, but confidently being able to say that we are in fact scalable. So I don't know if that answered the question, but
I think, yeah, it's a challenging question to ask, especially I think when you're emerging and when you're sort of still in the building phase. I mean, I think that's every organization's goal, is to be able to be something that's scalable, in a sense, replicable to a certain extent within your field. So thank you. It's sort of a tough question. All right, so the next one also comes from Jim. He was asking about if any of you have experiences with crowdfunding. That's sort of, a hot new way now to get funding for a lot of different sectors and areas of work. So wondering if any of you guys have personal experience.
I do. So in December of 2013, so essentially the backstory is that in October of last year, we found out that the Ugandan government is ready to bring electricity to one of the villages where we work, and they were going to put up 70% of the upfront costs. And so we had to go out and fundraise $30,000 to make this project happen. And it was kind of a strategic decision to try to blow it up into a crowdfunding campaign rather than target a few capable donors and asking them to come on board, because electricity is a very sexy project. People want to contribute in tangible ways. And we are still an up-and-coming organization, and we wanted to kind of harness some of the work that we're doing to get some media attention, to get the word out and get people talking about what we're doing. So essentially what we did, we created a campaign called Lights for Light, and the idea was that someone can donate $10 for us on the website, lightsforlight.com. Once they donate the $10, we light like a light on the Christmas tree, or an ornament on the Christmas tree, and by the end of the campaign, when we raise the $30,000, we would have a fully lit tree. So once the person gives us the $10, we also take them to a page where we allow them to share their experience with their friends on Facebook and Twitter, and kind of generate some social conversations that way. Our experience was that it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. It's not just a matter of throwing a website or a campaign together and magic happens. It actually takes a lot of strategic planning, a lot of time to kind of reach out to media outlets and to blogs and to movers and shakers and mobilizers in the community to kind of get some attention and traction. And yeah, if people have a creative idea, it's going to stick. And that will facilitate the idea of crowdfunding. If people have resources and a team of volunteers that's excited about the idea, that definitely makes it easier. And if the project can resonate with people, like with the mass public, then that's also an avenue where I'd consider crowdfunding. So anyways.
Thanks so much. I think a lot of people look at crowdfunding as being an easy way, easier than going and approaching a partner or something like that, but it sounds like, I mean, no money's easy, right? So it sounds like it takes just as much work, if not more, to put together a really successful crowdfunding campaign. Thanks so much for sharing. All right, so we have one last question, and this is from Timlin, and it's, what has been your most successful strategy for stakeholder development? I think we sort of probably touched on this a little bit today with some of the topics, but if any of you guys have something specific that you've developed or used, that would be great to share.
So I'll say, two things. One, making the person believe in you and what you're doing is really important. From the for-profit social enterprise point of view, it is a lot about the bottom line when you're talking to different stakeholders. So learning the language of the bottom line and really being able to demonstrate not just your social impact, but how you are creating economic impact, how you are going to create jobs, how you're going to create sustainable income for yourself and your employees is something really important to have a grasp on, to be able to get stakeholders that are beyond the interest of your social cause and want to be involved in something that could potentially be making them money as well. And again, that's from the for-profit social enterprise side, where you are a lot of the time speaking to people in a lot of different ways, and it's not always beautifully combined with your social cause and the financial aspect of it. So I think the believing in yourself part of it is the best, because whether it's about finance or whether it's about your social cause or both and something in between, if they don't believe that you can do it and they don't see that you have your due diligence in order, then it's going to be really hard to get somebody to be a stakeholder and to be on your side.
Great. Thank you so much, Dan. So we're going to be wrapping up now, and actually Fadi has to run, so we're going to let him say his goodbye first.
Okay, thanks so much for having me, guys. This was amazing. It was really cool to meet all the people in the US and in Mexico, and I hope to stay in touch. tweet me at Uganda Venture or at Fadi Qassar. I'm going to type that into the chat box, and hope to talk to you guys soon.
Great.
So,
Thank you so much. We're going to be closing up the chat now. Thank you again to everybody who participated. We really appreciate taking the time and sharing all your thoughts and your experiences. This video will be up on our YouTube page, and we'll be updating it with information on everyone's Twitter accounts and websites and the full names of all the participants, so you can follow up with their work or contact them if you're interested. And if anyone wants to do a last shout out goodbye, you're welcome to, but this chat is over now. Thank you so much from Ashoka Changemakers.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.